This is an important topic that Alexa has picked. Alexa is one of our graduating residents who next year is going to be at Arkansas Children's Hospital doing emergency pediatric medicine fellowship. So proud of her accomplishments, and we're ready for her grand rounds.
Thank you. So today I chose to talk about the sexualization of today's youth. Can everybody hear me on this? All right. So for disclosures, I have no really disclosures. I have no conflicts of interest, and I do want to warn you that some of the content may be graphic in nature today. So my objectives today are to assess the influence of hypersexualization on today's youth through different forms of media, to identify the gender disparities that society places on youth through commercialism, discuss the implications of pornography on the developing brain, recognize the repercussions of hypersexualization imagery on children and adolescents, and to plan for what can be done both at home as a parent and in your practice to redirect youth. So first, let's define sexualization. And this is from the APA in 2012, and they said there are several components to sexualization, and these set it apart from healthy sexuality. Negative sexualization occurs when four things happen. A person's value comes only from his or her sexual appeal or behavior to the exclusion of other characteristics. A person is held to a standard that equates physical attractiveness with being sexy. A person is sexually objectified, that is, made into a thing for others' sexual use, rather than seeing as a person with the capacity for independent action and decision-making. And fourth, its sexuality is inappropriately imposed upon a person. So a lot of times we see sexualization is aimed typically at the commercialization of a product or trade, but it has become a part of the fabric of our collective consciousness. And we often ignore what is truly acceptable versus what is not because sexualization is so common and mainstream now. So what are the problems with hypersexualization today? We're creating a generation of super-sexualized children. So children are actually demonstrating sexual interest and or sexual behavior at earlier stages than ever before in our society. Kids are being exposed to sexual matters that were previously only in the purview of adults, and the greater the exposure, the greater the consequences. Often parents fail to actually counter and buffer the plethora of the sexual stimuli that confront children today, so they're left to their own devices to manage what they experience. And many will become confused or have difficulty making sense of and putting into proper perspective what they're exposed to. So what does this lead to? Some will actually try to act out or mimic what they have been exposed to. Others may develop a bullying persona and engage in hurtful or intrusive sexual behaviors towards other children. And there's actually a trend seen today by many counselors of young children under the age of 10 that are actually molesting other children. So one quote I found in an article was, it said, "It can be hard to acknowledge that all of us, even children, are sexual beings, have sexual feelings, and are curious about sex and sexuality. Children's curiosity can lead to exploring their own and each other's body parts by looking and touching." So a child's personal development is part of their sexualization. So core to development are three things: learning who they are, why they think, why they do, and why they behave in particular ways. So it is important to understand, especially as pediatricians, appropriate versus inappropriate sexual behaviors. So let's talk about some appropriate sexual behaviors. I won't read all these, but this is mostly in the 0 to 6 range years of age for a child. So touching or rubbing his or her genitals is appropriate. The desire to view or touch peers or a new sibling's genitals because they may be different. Showing his or her genitals to others. Pretending to be a doctor or nurse, playing doctor as we know. Pretending to be a mommy or daddy. Kissing and holding hands, and children who are exploring his or her body, masturbation. This is all appropriate sexual behavior for this age. Now, there are behaviors that will need to be monitored, and these are still considered normal, but you have to evaluate them for appropriateness, consistency, frequency, and the persistence. And so some of these are children who insist on masturbating beyond a parent's request for it to stop, rubbing his or her body against others, touching the private parts of another child or adult, crude mimicking of movements associated with sexual acts, sexual behaviors that are occasionally but persistently disruptive to others, chronic or persistent peeping behaviors, and behaviors that mimic television programming, commercials, or movies. So children don't actually have to be watching a program to pick up a glimpse of something sexual on TV. And they have a knack for picking up the slightest sexual thing. So that's why it's really important to pay attention to what's on anytime a child is in the room. Now, abnormal sexual behaviors in children would be any sexual behaviors that involve children who are 4 or more years apart, sexual behaviors displayed frequently, consistently, and repeatedly, such as those we mentioned before, especially if they're on a daily basis, sexual behavior that results in emotional distress or physical pain, persistent sexual behaviors that are physically aggressive in nature, sexual behaviors that involve coercion, pressure, intimidation, or manipulation, and behaviors that you notice are persistent and the child becomes angry if distracted. If they're showing behaviors that are forceful or show acts of domination over the other, or in children who are sexually provocative in their play, simulating sex with another child or adult, or any behavior that's deviant from the norm. But what is the norm is kind of skewed today because of what we see on TV. So social media is a huge influence today, and pretty much all our preteens and teens are already on social media. So if we look at these images, this first one on the left talks about the media sexualizing teen girls and the percent of female characters shown participating in sexual situations. 47% of these characters were underage and only 29% were adults. And 98% of the sexual incidents involving underage female characters occurred outside of any form of committed relationship. So this is really a problem that we're seeing on TV, is not committed relationships of sex, but actually casual relationships. And if we look at this next slide, we show that in ads, there's 3 dependent variables that are used: the attitude towards the ad, the attitude towards the firm that produces the ad, and the purchase intentions. And they are compared across age and gender. And what they're finding is, for males, they're generally held more positive attitudes toward ads compared to females that are more sexual in nature. And for age, younger respondents had higher levels of acceptance towards sexual ads. So let's talk about the influence of media. So there's consequences of over-sexualization of females today. 53% of 13-year-old girls are not happy with their bodies. 78% are not happy by the age of 17. And 65% of U.S. women and girls report disordered eating behaviors. And out of 8 million people with an eating disorder in the U.S., 7 million are women. So the number of cosmetic procedures performed on youth under the age of 19 have more than tripled from 1997 to 2007. And every 1 in 4 girls experience teen dating violence now. 1 in 6 women are survivors of rape or attempted rape, and 1 in 4 women are abused by a partner in their lifetime. And what's really disturbing is 15% of rape survivors are under the age of 12. So studies have proven that exposures to sexually explicit video games, media, music videos are all linked to men's acceptance of rape myths and sexual harassment today. And we see that if we look at these statistics, out of 81 television episodes studied, 84% of all the content contained at least one form of sexual harassment against women. And most of these studies found that 72% of these characters were male. And in advertising alone, 80% of ads that were sampled showed female models posed in sexually submissive postures. And this is from the report of the APA task force. So we're constantly connected. So what are the adverse effects of media on children and teen? What we know is mass media are important sex educators today, but they're not concerned with the outcome of their ubiquitous sexual lessons. So the goal is just to attract an audience and sell a product. So almost 75% of teens today have a smartphone, and 25% of teens describe themselves as being constantly connected to the internet. So on average, they spend 6 to 7 hours on media daily, and 76% of teens use at least one social media site. 4 out of 5 households own a device used to play video games, and the majority of these households with teens or young children have a TV in the bedroom. So why should we unplug sometimes? There's different negative effects. And one of them we see is on school performance. They're usually multitasking on their social media or their phone while doing schoolwork. It results in risky behaviors. The exposure of teens to media, to alcohol, tobacco, or sexual behaviors is associated with the earlier initiation of these behaviors. We see a rise in obesity, which excessive screen use, and this is shown that in teens with greater than 5 hours a day are 5 times more likely to be overweight than those watching 0 to 2 hours, and in children 4 to 9, over 1.5 hours is a risk. We're also seeing sleep problems in our youth with mobile devices or TVs in their room, and this is from blue light exposure versus stimulating content. There's also problematic internet use going on, and heavy video gamers are at risk for what's known as internet gaming disorder. And these people have less interest in real life relationships and increased risk of depression. You also have cyberbullying, which you're very familiar with. We see it on the news every day. And of course, your privacy and predator issues, with sex offenders may use social networking, chat rooms, email, and online games to contact and exploit children. So we're going to look at some ads, and obviously these are older ads and it started some time ago and it's just gotten worse as the time's gone on. So if we look at this ad, we see a woman on the floor next to a shoe and it says, "Keep her where she belongs." I mean, what does that say to you? And then the ad next to it is, "Show her it's a man's world," and she's serving the man. And then the Love's Baby Soft ad, this is obviously a young girl, but she's made to look older. And it says, "Because innocence is sexier than you think." So this is a perfect ad for a sex offender to like. And then if we look at these are more. And I was just pretty shocked with this content. I didn't think you would find these nowadays. But it says, "That's right, boys, I'm on the pill." It's like it's advertising that this woman should have sex. And then this one with the cheerleader and the 2 football players, and it says, "Hey, Susie, what do you say to a locker room throughway after the game? Bobby and Francis told us they had a terrific time last week." This is for a Twix. I don't even get the context of it. So let's talk about toys today. All right, so popular are the Bratz dolls. They have the Bratz show. And these are really hypersexualized images of girls. Very, developed, super made up. We see, if I zoom in on their faces, you see the enlarged lips, like they look like cosmetically plumped lips. They're selling cosmetic sets for young girls. We see Barbie, which have evolved over time. There's always been controversy with Barbie that she doesn't represent what a true woman's size is, that basically a woman would fall over if she had these proportions. And then you have the video game or the cartoons, they're over-sexualized too. And so basically we're seeing a distorted sense of gender norms now. And if we look at the percentage of characters in family films wearing sexy attire by gender, there's a disparity there. 28.3% of female characters versus 8% of males. And then we can look back at Barbie, who, like I said, is in a controversy and to feminists. It's this unfair standard of beauty. But there's also in the component of boys' toys, which such as He-Man, this ripped, muscly dude. And now today we have something called, I like to call it the pageant phenomenon. You have these little girls who are put into pageants, nothing necessarily wrong with that, but it's gone into this warped overdrive of over-sexualizing them. They're putting fake eyelashes on them, fake teeth, spray tan, hair extensions, makeup, and basically stripper outfits a lot of the times. So this has gone a little extreme. And then we have the music videos. And so I saw this picture and it reminded me of when I was in high school and I walked in, I was at my aunt's house, and I walked in and she had a daughter much later in life. She was about 3 or 4 years old, and she was standing on the coffee table dancing and shaking her butt to an MTV music video, and I thought, something is wrong with this picture. And that's what we're seeing. So some of these images are probably familiar to you from popular music videos, but what do every one of them say? They're all representing sex. Dance routines, competitive dance and cheer are also more sexualized today. 2 of these images are from competitive dance teams, and obviously they're dressed very scantily. If you were to see the videos, they're doing very provocative moves. And then, of course, there's a trend to pole dancing. And so no longer are the days are this just for strippers, it's for young girls too. And then we have what I like to call the fast food vixens. And so you have these sexual images of women that are promoting fast food. And so we start with the burgers that represent breast or the butt. And what is this exactly trying to say? Because if you were eating this every day, would you look like that? So that's a good question to ask yourself. And at the top, we see Paris Hilton, and she's telling us, she'll tell you size doesn't matter. She's lying. It's a totally sexual innuendo in regards to the size of a burger. And so if we look, the fast food industry is using sex to sell. And it's up 2,000% in the past 30 years. And obesity in this time has tripled since 1980. So sex definitely sells. And then we have the body products on the market that are supposed to transform you. So this is an antiperspirant ad up at the top. So I guess you're not supposed to get sweaty in the kitchen. Or the over-sexualized image to wash this woman. Or the sadomasochistic image that using this Axe body wash, the cleaner you are, the dirtier you get. And then, of course, we have the influence of celebrity. So everybody knows Kim Kardashian, Britney Spears, and Nicki Minaj. Nicki Minaj and Kim Kardashian, obviously known for their bum. So this is a distortion because kids are looking at this on reality TV every day or in these music videos and thinking, I want to be like her. And then we have, this is a popular show from years ago, and what is this telling you? I actually like this show, but this just represents the wrong image. So it's showing that to be a desperate housewife, you need to be cooking, cleaning, ironing clothes, and scantily clad. And so this, if we look at these tables, and I'm not going to go over all this, but we see that there's a prevalence of female characters across media, and you see most of them are in the primetime programs. And then there's still, there's more male characters to female characters in all these genres, family films and children's shows, 2 to 1. But if we look at the appearance indicators by females' age within media, excuse me, we see in the 21 to 39-year-old category, that's the largest percentage wearing sexy attire or having exposed skin. And the next second highest is the 13 to 20-year-old category. That's really inappropriate for today's time. The other thing, if you've gone to a store recently, guys probably are not as familiar with this, but for girls, if you go to some of these stores and you go in the more lingerie, I hate to say lingerie section, but let's say you're going to buy your daughter a training bra. It's very aimed, it looks like almost an adult store in a smaller form. And so it's really shocking because what you might buy as an adult bra, you might find for a kid now. So let's talk about the look of today's child. We see girls running around in short shorts, cut off midriffs. They're made up a lot of the times. And you look at these ads, and here's an ad for this lingerie, and I don't think a girl this age should be wearing this kind of stuff. This looks like for an adult. And then you have the underwear that you can buy to write on for text. What would you need to be saying on an underwear for a girl this age? And A, who would be seeing it? And then my favorite was at a kiosk. I don't know, many of you, like if you went shopping with your mom when you were a kid, you always usually got a little reward from the coin machine that are outside like of Walmart or wherever. And one of them that you find there is these lower back tattoos. So basically kids can get a tramp stamp nowadays. And then we also see the costumes for kids and teens that are sexually exploited. And girls in here probably can relate because we like to dress up on the peds floor for Halloween, and it is hard to find an outfit nowadays that is appropriate because all the things are overly sexual. You could not wear this on a normal daily basis. And all these, the sexy Indian, the sexy Minnie Mouse, why do you have to be sexy? And then the most disturbing to me was everybody knows Julia Roberts from Pretty Woman. They're putting kids in the stripper outfit or a prostitute outfit. And then I came across this in doing research. And this is actually an ad that is promoting waxing for girls 15 and under. And honestly, I don't remember that ever being even on my radar at that age. But I guess as we're evolving, it is now. But this is an ad for 50% off if they want to start this. And then this other one was membership is free for this other aromatine wax card place. And then I even found this waxing girls game for young kids. So early and earlier, they're getting exposed to this. And Gail Dines is a professor. This is actually the lady I first got interested in this topic. I heard her talk at AAP this year. And she said, if tomorrow women woke up and decided they really liked their bodies, just think how many industries would go out of business if everyone said no. So the mentality of 2017 is that flesh sells, and people don't want to see pictures of churches. They want to see naked bodies. And so this swimwear ad on your right shows you that mentality. Whatever suits you, lean back, relax, and be the view. And then we see on the left, this is typical of today, a young girl, scantily clad, looks like a maid outfit or something, doing a Snapchat or a selfie and probably sexting it and sending it to someone. So today's culture of what's acceptable has become completely skewed. And doing my research, I came across Albert Booty Pop the rapper. He's 6 years old. He's in this video on YouTube, and basically all these women are booty popping around him. And this is a big thing today. And I know, for instance, I used to teach high school, and then my mom, one of her things she least liked about being a teacher is going to school dances because she said it made her disgusted because she felt like all the kids dance in a pack. She called it like dancing like a pack of dogs in heat. And it's disturbing. Why do we allow this to happen? And then if we look at print media, we see this is 17 magazine, which is aimed at kids or teenagers. And we look at the progression over time starting at the left. Normal, really covered girls, going from a fresh face with braces. And as we went in time, less and less clothes on, more made up, advertising, flat abs, the cutest clothes. And then this latest one with Ashley Benson from Pretty Little Liars, she's in cut-off shorts, how to look hotter in your jeans. And then what was most disturbing to me was the love quiz blowout. Are your texts turning him on? And what do you guys think of your selfie? What message is this sending our kids? So obviously sex sells. This Vogue magazine from Italy. Obviously this girl is usually of age, but what does this ad tell you? She's made to look like she's a young female, especially with the holding the teddy bear. And to me, this says, we obviously don't like sex offenders, but why are we going to put something like this on the cover that represents this of something that's not socially acceptable? And then the Wonder Bra ad. I can't cook, but who cares because I have a big rag. And if we go through more images, look at these and just think, what do these images say to you? Popular culture is bombarding us with hypersexualized images of women and men, conveying powerful messages that help shape our sexuality. And notice the girl on the right. Would you ever put your daughter in that? And then we look at other magazines today. All of these scantily clad in sexual natures, topless, and the one on the right, Glee, which is a really popular show for a lot of teens that was on in the last few years, it says, Glee Gone Wild. We show you what happens when the teachers aren't around. Obviously, all sexual innuendos. And then we have the makeup ads. They're probably my favorite. You start with the mascara ad with the come hither look, and then the Miss USA ad for Rain Cosmetics, to be sexy, be seen, and be different. And then the lipstick ads, and Rimmel is a popular, cheaper makeup line that you can buy in any stores. And this is talking about how orgasmic this lipstick is, and you can all read it. So this is a disturbing trend. And then we have an overriding theme of female domination in a lot of ads. So this is not the right message we need to be sending young girls. And then there's the vulgarity. Sorry, I don't know what happened to that image. The vulgarity of certain brands. And all of these are for American Apparel. I don't know about you, but I don't think I would ever buy something from American Apparel now based on these ads. And why all the girls need a crotch shot, I have no idea. And the only one that's decent is of the guy advertising their clothes, but obviously he's dominating a female. And then you get in even more sexually explicit ads with the Dolce & Gabbana ads, which are basically gangbanging ads. And then at the top you see someone offering a ring, maybe an engagement ring, maybe a gift. And so the woman opens her legs. And I think the worst one is this condom ad that's for XXL condoms, telling you basically you would split your lips because they're so big. Then there's objectification at its finest. This is an ad for shoes, but in the ad, this man is picking from his pick of women, basically out of a vending machine. And then here's a PETA ad of Pamela Anderson saying that this basically on a cow represents all her body parts. So objectification. Everyday, ordinary women are being reduced to their sexual body parts. And this isn't just something that supermodels or porn stars are having to deal with. 57% of rock music videos portray women as sex objects, as victims, as unintelligent, or in a condescending way. And another 50% of women are actually targeted for workplace bullying nowadays. Only 2% of women are thought to think that they are beautiful now in the world. So women are routinely degraded in everything from pop culture to casual conversations. 90% of all women want to change at least one aspect of their physical appearance, and 81% of 10-year-old girls are afraid of being fat. And the list of these problems keep going on, such as 1 in every 4 college-age women have an eating disorder, and there's still gender disparity in the workforce as well. So we look at these ads, and who has a campaign now that says, but they're just ads. And this is what we think. We just ignore things most of this time. And you have to look at this, and you see this girl and this guy, and they're both advertising the same sweater, but the clothing is actually an accessory, whereas with the girl, she is the accessory. And so by accepting this difference, if you were to see these ads, we are perpetuating the objectification of women's bodies. So when are we going to become more of the solution to this? And then this just shows you how women's underwear is usually advertised, and then how men's underwear is advertised as the Fruit of the Loom characters. Now, there are some sexy men's ads out there, but for the most part, we see this. So why do we keep making excuses? And what happened to our values along the way? So gone are the I Love Lucy days and the peck on the cheek, or how they used to be in twin beds, and now everything is overly sexualized. You got stripper poles in bedrooms. I actually stayed when I went for a fellowship interview in a hotel room that had a stripper pole in it. And so now we also see this trend towards sexting, and this has become the new normal. So for those of you who have teenagers or going to have teenagers, if you think your teen would never sex, you are likely mistaken. 2 recent studies suggest that sexting is more common than many parents might realize or want to admit, and more than half the undergraduate students who took part in an online anonymous survey said they sexted when they were teenagers. And 30% said they included photos in their sext. 61% did not know that sending nude photos via text could be considered child pornography. So a study at UTMB Galveston found that while students who admitted sexting were 32% more likely to report having sex within the next year, sexting by teenagers was not actually linked to increased risky behavior over time. So the thing is, kids don't hear the warnings because reality doesn't fit them, and they think it won't happen to me. But parents and educators should be talking to kids about obeying the law, protecting their privacy and reputation, and respecting everyone's right to keep their bodies private. And the thing is that once an image is out there, you can never fully erase it once it's sent. And 20% of sex today are photos of children, mostly girls, 15 years of age or younger. I know my mom teaches junior high. Just a couple of weeks ago, they had a girl who sent a naked image of herself, and it went all the way around the school. So it's very prevalent. So now let's talk about the depths of the internet and what you can find. And all these things are more explicit. So porn. We are now known as generation porn. 1 in 4 search queries is about porn on the internet, and 1/3 of all downloads are porn. And online porn is making $3,000 a second. It's a $1 billion industry. So with just a click of a button, the content is limitless. So what's the deal with porn? An image pops up on your screen and you can't help but be drawn in. It doesn't matter who you are, you can't look away for a minute. And so in an online sexual imagery survey, 97% of boys and 80% of girls have admitted to viewing pornography. But of those, 23% of boys and 8% of girls said they tried to stop watching it, but they could not turn away. And 7% of boys sought professional help because they felt their porn habit had become out of control. So weekly pornography viewing is significantly associated with inconsistent condom use, with casual partners, engaging in anal intercourse, and with sexting. So the facts. 11 is the average age boys first view porn. And porn sites, I want you to take this in, porn sites get more visitors each month than Netflix, Amazon, and Twitter combined. And with Pornhub is one of your free sites alone receiving 21.2 billion visits in 2015. 35% of all internet downloads are porn, and porn has become a primary source of information about sex and a significant factor influencing sexual behaviors among children and adolescents because we're just not talking about it like we should. 93% of boys between 12 and 17 admit to going online for this, and 1/3 of them have unmonitored computer access in the home. Teen porn searches more than tripled between 2005 and 2013. 88% of scenes in your top rented porn have found to contain physical aggression, and in almost half verbal aggression. Men were the perpetrators 70% of the time, and women were the targets 94% of the time. So females are far more likely than males to be sexualized in the media. And this is causing problems with developing a healthy self-esteem, their sexuality, the overvaluing of physical appearance, and the endorsement of these sexual stereotypes that depict women as sexual objects. So let's talk about a pornified culture. And I mentioned Dr. Gail Dines, who I heard this lecture, and I really encourage you to go and watch her TED Talk video. It's too long for me to show today. This is also her book, and it's excellent. So I want to show you this little excerpt from her.
My name is Dr. Gail Dines. I'm Professor of Sociology and Women's Studies at York College, and I'm also founder and president of Culture Reframed, which is a non-profit that defines pornography as the public health crisis of the digital age. You know, I lecture all over the world. I lecture in colleges. What you see in the beginning is that the men, the hostility is literally coming off them. You can feel it. They're bristling with hostility towards me because they're obviously thinking, you know, what does this middle-aged feminist know about my life and about pornography? And then I start to talk. And you see their body, literally, you see their bodies change. You see the hostility kind of seep out of them because nobody before has ever explained to them what pornography does. And they are hungry for this. And at the end, they are lining up, some of them in tears, begging for help to get off pornography. Now, the problem is that pornography is a kind of stealth public health crisis. I think a lot of people, especially over the age of 35, do not understand the world of young people. They do not understand what it means to grow up in a society saturated by pornography. I mean, when you look back at our sort of father's generation, or even my generation, how did boys get to pornography? They found their father's Playboy, Penthouse, and they had limited access to pornography. Now, that was sexist and bad enough as it was. But really, you look back at that today with a kind of nostalgia, because today what happens is when they put porn into Google, they get catapulted into a world of sexual violence, degradation, dehumanization. They get catapulted into a world that I think for many, They had no idea this is what they were going to get into. And I think it traumatizes them. I think it really has a terrible impact on the way they think about themselves, the way they think about sexuality, intimacy, and connection. And really, you know, when you think about what sex is about, we call it making love. In porn, it's actually making hate. He makes hate to her. All the emotions that one links to hate, you know, degradation, fear, violence, disgust, all of those things are what he shows towards her. So this is the introduction into the world of sex of the young boy. And so when we think about effects, when it affects the boys, then it affects the girls. And the reason for that is that the boys think the girls are going to behave like the girls and the women in pornography. And so pornography really sets you up for disappointment. Now, people who often criticize pornography are called anti-sex, to which I would argue that if you want to be pro-sex, you have to be anti-porn. You can't be pro-porn and pro-sex. You have to pick one. And I think those of us who are against pornography are against pornography because we can't stand what it does to sex. We can't stand to see the way in which it reduces sex to an industrial toxic product, which is exactly what pornography does. The free porn sites were designed as a way to get young boys into pornography. So by the time they get their credit card, they're addicted and they're using it and using it. It's a perfect business model. And I don't know what kind of adult men these boys are going to grow up into, because we have robbed them of so much by introducing them to pornography at such an early age. We have allowed the pornographers to come in and to hijack our kids' sexuality into a sexuality that is predatory, that is violent, that is disconnected, and that reduces humans to just basically sex objects, men and women. So this is why pornography is a public health crisis. It goes from the individual and radiates out to families, communities, to the culture. That is why we have to be bold, we have to be courageous, and we have to make a stand and say, not on our watch are you going to hijack our children's sexuality.
So again, I really encourage you to go watch her TED Talk because it's a little bit more vulgar. It really puts some things out there, but it's very intriguing. And one of the things she says in that talk is there are the 3 A's that drive demand in porn. It's affordable because mostly it's free, it's accessible with one click of a button, and it's anonymous. So this is Pornhub. This is one of the free sites, and you can see you can search for different porn in different categories. There is even now an Amateur of the Month contest where you can submit your own video and possibly win $1,000. And the people who are addicted to porn are known as smut junkies. So let's talk about the repercussions of pornography. Impotence is on the rise in young males. There was a study in Italy done with 439 ED patients, and 26% of them were under age 40. They were assessed based on lifestyle and health factors that usually contribute to ED, testosterone levels, BMI, smoking history, drug use, and all of these were excluded as the cause. And so 1 out of 4 new ED patients now is under 40. And 1 out of 5 of those men admitted to watching porn 3 to 5 times a week. So the results indicate that younger men aren't suffering from ED for the same reasons as their dads and their grandfathers. And they are also likely to have addictions to cigarettes and illicit drugs alongside this. But there are also psychological factors at play. Anxiety, depression, and the heightened exposure to porn or addiction to it. And in the Journal of Sexual Medicine, it was reported that men who start watching porn regularly in their teens or who currently view porn every day are significantly more likely to experience a low libido or a weak erection. And frequent exposure to graphic images and films is desensitizing men in their late teens and early 20s. And the problem is being exacerbated by the proliferations of smartphones and tablets, which make porn instantly accessible. So people are becoming what's called wired to porn. And 3% of men admitted to preferring porn over actually having sex with a partner. This is a neurosurgeon talking.
There really is no good porn. And we're not speaking moralistically here relativistically. I'm speaking biologically. Pornography is not real. It's not real in a natural way. We're not designed to consume pornography. We're designed to have sexuality in a format that helps us survive, where it's enjoyable for both parties. And pornography is a rewiring, toxic form of human sexuality. For instance, a young man that's grown up having sex, so to speak, with a screen, it's unlikely that a real woman is going to fit the bill for him. He's been scripted, sexually wired, sexually imprinted to believe that that is sex. Not real sex, but porn sex. Our brains are designed for so much more. We're designed to love, to think, to bond, to live, not simply to use other people as if they're objects and throw them away. We're much more than that. And a person that has been rewired with these sexual scripts through pornography will find that recovery, while very possible, is a process as well. Just as becoming addicted is a process, recovery, similarly, is a process. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes knowledge.
So obviously we've talked about the inability to become sexually aroused can come from too much porn exposure, and so guys are having to go to psychosexual therapy now. And their first assessment questions when men go have actually changed over time, and now they're regarding pornography and masturbatory habits. And the frequency of both of these can cause their issues when maintaining an erection with a partner. So let's talk about the addictiveness of porn. So one article interviewed John, who reported wanting to have sex with real-world partners, but he was unable to because he felt wired to porn. And so most addicted to pornography are watching at least 2 hours every day, and the content also tends to get more extreme over a short period of time. And a U.S. study in the Behavioral Sciences Journal claims that online porn mirrors drug-like addiction qualities, leading to lowered sexual enjoyment and diminished libido. And the report adds that the potential health risks of internet pornography are not as well understood as those for alcohol and tobacco, which we well know, and they're widely portrayed as both ordinary behavior and socially acceptable. So we're seeing men who are becoming desensitized to arousing images and even rough sex portrayed in porn, and as a result, many of these men are having problems in the bedroom. And so urologists believe that porn-related ED is the most common among young men now, and particularly ones going into their 20s. And some believe that anywhere between 15 to 20% of their ED cases are actually caused by porn addiction now. And so we all know the lovely Viagra ads. And so what the research says about porn is young men may face performance anxiety when comparing the size of their appendage to those of porn stars. It's addictive like drugs with a tolerance built up over time. The problem is compounded by the omnipresence of online pornography, which means extreme content can be found in a few clicks. And research from a Naval Medical Center in San Diego surveyed 300 male and female patients, and they found that for men, researchers noticed a strong association between regularly watching porn and suffering from a lack of sexual desire and erectile dysfunction. Dr. Matthew Chrisman of this study said that sexual behavior activates the same reward system circuitry in the brain as addictive drugs, such as cocaine and methamphetamines, which can result in self-reinforcing activity or recurrent behaviors. And he also said internet porn specifically has been shown to be a supernormal stimulus of the circuitry, which may be due to the ability to continuously and instantaneously self-select novel and more sexually arousing images. So watching too much internet porn can increase a person's tolerance the same as narcotics, and it's now becoming a new epidemic in the U.S. So regular porn watchers are less likely to respond to real-world sexual activity. And this could, another study from an NYU doctor said this could cause libido-sapping anxiety when real-world sex just doesn't measure up to those film fantasies. But it is unclear why in all these studies that these aforementioned effects do not also occur in women. So the influence of pornography. 66% of youth reported that all of their pornography exposure had initially been unintentional and unwanted. Counselors and clinical social workers are reporting growing numbers of adolescents as young as 12 dealing with out-of-control porn habits. And extreme porn is leading to a skewed sense of reality and contributes to rape culture and sexual violence today. So youth may become more hooked on porn depicting acts that few women would actually be willing to endure and leaving them bored by the standard sex on offer with real-life partners. I have one more short video to show you.
As a brain scientist, one of the things that I know is that the brain is an organ that modifies itself. So what pornography is doing for a lot of young people is it's coming in at a time when they're at this very vulnerable state neurologically. And so what it does is it plants this seed of what's appropriate, what's possible. And that's when neurologically you begin to start dwelling on it. You begin to start thinking about what would happen if I was in that scenario. What would I do? So a neurological system that is designed to go to a place where two people through sexual intimacy are bound to one another for their mutual benefit, you're now redirecting it so that their sexuality is binding them to something other than that relationship. Hijacking is a great way to put it, because when you hijack something, you take it from going where it's supposed to go and send it to someplace else. One of the things that terrifies people is when they hear that pornography changes your brain. And there's this terror that sets upon them as if somehow they are sticking a tumor or something into their brain and altering it in a way that's irreversible. And that's not the case. So when we think about pornography coming in and we make the claim that it's changing your brain, well, yes, it's changing your brain, but everything is changing your brain at some level, because that's what the brain's designed to be. That is, it's supposed to be an organ that is modifiable and plastic. And so what you need to think about in this journey of recovery is not how do I just wash all that away, because then what would happen is you'd just be back to start, and you would probably, by the way, make the same mistakes over again. So what you need to do is you need to learn a different trajectory and a different direction.
So developing brains are vulnerable. And the brains of adolescents may be more vulnerable to porn addiction because they are still developing. And the parts of the brain related to dopamine processes are the reward centers of the brain, and they're among the last to develop. So dopamine plays a major role in the onset of addiction, and the activities or experience that release large amounts of dopamine can cause the reward centers to become rewired so they're dependent on these surges. And immature adolescent brains have more difficulty regulating their response to dopamine, and current research suggests that young people have more difficulty saying no to the cravings and behaviors that porn inspires. And adolescents are likely particularly susceptible to be influenced by porn because of their developing sexual identities and biologically based critical period of development, as well as their relative sexual inexperience. So why should we worry? One of the things that it's been found is that porn is actually being easily accessible in schools now, and despite the blockades that many schools have on their systems, they know how to override them. And so it's useful for educators to know that porn may actually be contributing to a sexualized school climate that facilitates harassment. And these sexual scripts that free adult internet websites promote hypermasculinity, male domination, and the prioritization of male sexual pleasure as the norm. So youth will naively attempt to recreate these sexual scenes that are usually uncomfortable, can be injurious and unrealistic, and they have also admitted in several studies to filming these acts and that their partner has no idea about. So is this curable? The good news is that the ED-induced porn is reversible, and urologists report that most young men who give up their porn habit have an improvement in sexual function over a relatively short period of time. John, who we talked about earlier, went 100 days without watching porn and had no problems. And so does this apply to the addictive aspect of pornography? And that seems to be each case is unique based on psychological factors, but the long-term effect on sexually aggressive behavior is unknown. So we all know about sexual violence and its influence. We're all familiar with 50 Shades of Grey. And then we have the sadomasochistic part. And This is from an Australian cyber safety officer, and she reports that she's had several doctors tell me about the injuries they are seeing in young girls when they have been forced or coerced to do what is in porn videos. And the girls in the video appear to like it, so girls just think that's how sex is. And everybody knows Rihanna at the top, who has been abused by her partner, and yet she participates in this in her music videos. So this is also contributing towards a rape culture nowadays, and we constantly hear news stories, and you have to sit back and wonder, after looking at all this, is porn influencing a lot of those actual cases? And these are just, there are several documentaries. The UK is big on doing it right now. There's a documentary and then a show about teens hooked on porn, trying to bring awareness to this. And so there's lots of unhealthy behaviors that are fueled by porn and hypersexualization media. These are addictions, eating disorders, body dysmorphism, sexual violence, and even bestiality, which we've seen in our clinic here. And we can't forget that porn is a risk for sex trafficking, and most of those involved in porn are a part of sex trafficking. And I'm not going to go into that today, but it's a very important component. And then there's also the influence of body image. And these are some old ads that talk about, you know, this pear, this is no shape for a girl, stay fit and slim by taking amphetamine. And it continues today. And girls, for the most part, it's girls, some guys, but that they feel not good enough. They're not skinny enough, they're not pretty enough. And so we see this image of being obsessed with being perfect. And this is Heidi Montag. She was a reality star. And she's known for having 10 procedures done at one time to try to become this perfect woman, and yet she still is not happy after. So if we look at body image statistics, 80% of women say that the images of women on television and in movies, fashion magazines, and advertising makes them feel insecure. 42% of girls, 1st through 3rd grades, want to be thinner, and 81% of 10-year-olds are afraid of being fat. And if we look at the size ratio today, the average American woman is 140 pounds and 5'4", whereas the American model in most ads is 5'11" and 117. So there's a great disparity. And this image just shows you how if you took Barbie's proportions and put them on a regular average American woman, that it's not realistic. So beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but what are we teaching our youth? And I really liked this picture that said, warning, reflections in this mirror may be distorted by socially constructed ideas of beauty. And so now there's these campaigns. Victoria's Secret had the Love My Body campaign, but what do you notice about this? Every single woman looks exactly alike. But Dove now has a Real Body campaign about all the different types of women out there, and there's also campaigns to sod the stereotypes of women. But let's talk about the other things. So from this hypersexualized imagery we see, you can have the unintended consequences, the STIs and pregnancy. And every day, 2,400 American teens become pregnant, and 10,000 teens every year catch an STD. And if we look at this map, the most sexually diseased states in the U.S., Louisiana is number 2, second to Alaska, which I thought was interesting. And if we look, If we look at the sex ed is not being promoted like it should in the U.S. And so if we look, the red on this map to your right is states that don't require sex ed. And then the map to your left, of those, most of them that don't require it actually, if they do have a sex ed program, they stress abstinence, but they're not required to discuss contraception, and they have the highest birth rates. So there's this huge sex ed taboo, especially in the Bible Belt, about parental rights versus morality versus religion. And we remember Sarah Palin advocating for this. And so the numbers are in. Sex education varies by state. 28 states don't require sex education. And the most disturbing to me was 39 do not require that sex ed be medically accurate, which is very interesting. So what can parents do today? We can give reinforcement. We can take away the overwhelming idea of having to look hot, and that's not a priority. You have to compete against that because those messages are all over media. You can empower your kids. Teach your daughter to value themselves for who they are rather than how they look, and teach boys to value girls not as sexual objects. You can advocate for change with manufacturers and media producers. You can tune in and talk with your kids. You're encouraged to watch TV and movies with your kids, to read their magazines, surf their websites, and get on their apps and ask questions. You're also encouraged to develop media plans for children and take into account their age and developmental stage. Less than 24 months of age should avoid digital media at all unless they're video chatting with a parent who, let's say, is out of town. And ages 2 to 5 should be limited to 1 hour daily. You should question their choices. Often clothes are part of a distraction for girls and they become overly concerned about their appearance, so you should talk to them about why they want to wear that sexualized object of clothing. You should do your homework. Go to commonsensemedia.com for reviews of appropriate apps and games. You can speak up. Don't be afraid to have a conversation with them or why you don't like a TV show or music lyric. It's better than just saying no. You should encourage involvement in extracurriculars. You should educate them about sex. And so we got to get past the point of being uncomfortable about discussing sex with our kids and get them in a sex education program. And if it's not available, then you need to do it. You need to be real with them and focus on what's really important, what they think, how they feel, what they value, and give them tools to become healthy adults. You also need to be a role model. And marketing and media also influence adults, so you've got to pay attention to what you're buying and watching because you're teaching your sons and daughters to do so too. And set limits. Kids need and expect them. You need to know their friends online and off and always be present. Play together. Family participation is vital, and have tech-free zones in the home. And don't let technology become an emotional pacifier. So find other strategies for calming a kid or to manage boredom, and understand your kids. Young people often feel pressured to conform, so help your child make wise choices about the trendy alternatives and remind them they are unique. And remember that all kids are going to make mistakes, and handle their errors with empathy and turn a mistake into a teachable moment. And so these are just some ideas for healthy media choices, which the main thing is screen-free rooms. And these are some books that parents can utilize about how to deal with that sexualized childhood nowadays. And so what can pediatricians do? So the important thing to think about is the head's exam does not stop once you aren't a medical student, and we forget that sometimes. And per the AAP, at each well visit, we should be asking 2 media-related questions. How much time do you spend on daily entertainment media? And number 2, is there a TV or internet access in your kid's bedroom? And limit it to at least 2 hours a day if they're over the age of 5. Educate your patients and your parents. So don't forget to recognize the importance of media and talk about that in your visits. And don't be afraid to talk about sex. Don't let them just come in and get treated for an STD. You need to talk about safe sex. You need to talk about all the STDs, what they have, the consequences of it, and offer handouts for reading later because likely they're not going to absorb it all in that meeting. You can also get involved in public health awareness. Culture Reframed is the one Gail Dines runs about pornography. There's lots of great tools on her site about parent and even a health professionals program about, there's video lessons on there and model conversations for parents to have if they don't know how to address this. There's an online support center. And so there's many different other things the AAP recommends, such as child advocacy groups you can get involved in. You should urge your schools, if your kids are in school, for the school board to have a comprehensive sex ed program that does not just advocate for abstinence. And we can urge the broadcast industry to air advertisement for birth control and even emergency contraception, and limit advertisements for things such as ED drugs until after 10 p.m. So in conclusion, be your patient's advocate and be your child's advocate, because children can learn many things on the internet, most of the things you don't want them to know. So these are some resources youth can use that are great on the internet. These are a bunch of my references. Any questions?
Thank you. You covered a significant amount of information, and I guess specifically, when do you start talking to parents and sort of anticipatory guidance related to some of these issues with teens and social media, et cetera?
So a lot of parents don't actually want to address it until usually they're a teenager, and that's a mistake. So usually now, as early as the 8 to 10-year-old range, depending how advanced your kid is when you should start talking about it. And obviously it's a gradual thing. It's going to be based on their exposures and talking about maybe starting with things they see on TV, or if they ask you questions, not skirting around certain issues. It's best to be upfront and honest so they don't go seek it out somewhere else.
Have they got any laws on like advertisement on apps? Because there's a lot of apps for children, and I just didn't know if they limit what can be advertised or what, kind of forms of advertising they do on those applications.
I don't know of any laws, but that's why I mentioned that commonsensemedia.com is actually a great one that parents or you can go to that recommends versus against certain apps and what their content might have. Because a lot of times they have hidden content in those apps.
Yeah, even YouTube for kids, they have like inappropriate videos that they cannot stop to going into the YouTube Kids. So
Yeah.
we need always to be, if you have put something on, if you're letting the kid to put something on the iPad, you need to be with them, because sometimes
Right.
there are still inappropriate videos with Frozen and
Right.
Spider-Man kind of thing.
Right. And that's the thing, like they have spyware integrated in a lot of things, and then you get the pop-up ads, and a lot of times they're porn, and they just keep showing up, and you kids don't realize that, and they'll click on anything. Any other questions? I know it was a lot of information.
Other questions? If not, thank you very much.